There was only a cold reality of either following through on the agreement to withdraw our forces or escalating the conflict and sending thousands more American troops back into combat in Afghanistan.
So I want to make una know how the Taliban people then win over their country, then take total control for their country. Today, when they hear the same Taliban, where they call them like terrorists, like primitive people, like bad people, they are being embraced by the international community. The Chinese are welcoming them. They want to do business with them. The Russians are welcoming them. The Iranians, the whole world will eventually embrace the Taliban. People that were considered backward, that were considered criminals, terrorists, and whatsoever. Things are changing. I want you to listen carefully to the reason why the Americans have abandoned Afghanistan. First, Joe Biden, the president of America, says the status quo. If things remain the way they are, every day Americans will be dying. Slow death. They will be burying their children. Those families are real families back home. So they will not accept a situation, no matter how many Talibans they have killed, so long as Talibans are capable of killing their soldiers, even one a week. It has terrible consequences on their psychology and their calculations.
Lurching into the third decade of. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
So after 20 years of fighting, the Americans have learned the hard way, the lessons they know already from their experience in Vietnam. No matter how long you fight people resisting in their own indigenous territory, in their own territory, their own country, you will eventually come to the same conclusion. You cannot fight them with weapons. You cannot defeat them. You have to go back to your country. This is true in Afghanistan. This is true in Ambazonia. This will be true in Biafra. You have to know this logic, and you have to know that this is attainable. So long as you have a right case, you have the moral grounds to fight, to resist foreign occupation, you will eventually prevail.
That's why the truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the.
So understand one thing. The Afghanistan, I will come back to tell you exactly what happened. You should know that the Afghanistan, the mission of Americans to attack in Afghanistan was have a good moral standing initially, because they were attacked by Al-Qaeda. So naturally, they had the right to strike back at Al-Qaeda. Remember, it was not the Taliban that attacked America. It was Al-Qaeda that attacked America. And the Americans was going into Afghanistan to find the Taliban, to fight the Taliban in order to get rid of Al-Qaeda. Eventually, in 2011, Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was killed. The whole justification of that war and American presence in Afghanistan was supposed to come to an end. Because that is the reason. You are going there to kill Osama bin Laden. You have finally killed him. There is no reason for you to stay there. But what happened was, the Americans, they called for a conference. They had called for a conference, a Berlin conference in 2014. And in 2012, the United Nations, organized by the United Nations, listen very well, to gather all the international partners to pay for a program to reconstruct Afghanistan and reorganize Afghanistan. In the talks in 2014 in Berlin, and the talk in 2012 that was also in Berlin and in Qatar and in many other Arab states, the Taliban was kept aside because they did not see them like people who are civilized, despite the fact that the Taliban is the most popular, the most organized group in Afghanistan. If you go in the diaspora population of Afghanistan people, especially those in Pakistan, where you have the vast majority of diasporans, all of them, more than 90% supports the Taliban. They are free there. You cannot say they are under pressure. You go to India, all of them support the ideology of the Taliban. That is not to say they support necessarily the Al-Qaeda. They support the Taliban because the Taliban represent their culture, their way of life, their Islamic way of life, no matter how you see it. But every people have the right to live the way they choose to, so long as they are not, their way of life are not repugnant to natural justice. Even when this conflict exists, where traditional practice and the way of life, it goes against natural justice, against women's rights, against human rights, you cannot fight such ills or such shortcomings by using gun. You cannot fight such shortcomings by imposing a controlled democracy over those people, using corrupt individuals in the diaspora who want to come there and just represent American vision and way of life. It has failed in many other countries. That is the reason why a lot of refugees are now migrating out of countries into America, because their people have no chance, they have no say in governing their country. They have kept aside the Taliban that encourage and radicalize the Taliban to carry out more attacks against the Americans, because they represent the vision of the people. That's why they are popular. That's why the Americans cannot win. Remember that before Osama bin Laden was killed, the Afghanistan military was really motivated to fight. You had the northern alliances that were fighting. You have some tribes that were supporting the fight to fight against the Taliban because they were seen as hosting the Al-Qaeda network. After that, when this corrupt government that was formed, which is more corrupt than the Taliban, because these are people who are there simply because the Americans put them there, because the Americans are there. It's the same thing that is happening in Biafra and in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and many other states that were colonized by white people. They select their own type of black people, their own type of happy slave, and give the country over to people that have been trained in their own educational system to have this controlled democracy. And specific people that represent the local people are banned from participating in politics, arrested, put in jail, labeled terrorists, and they are being chased every single day to kill them. While political venues are made for their own corrupt officials to take control of a government that is just there to do one thing: protect American interests. The Afghanistan government was there to protect American interests, to make sure that Al-Qaeda do not come there. That is not a bad justification, but that should not be the reason of a government, to protect foreign interests. It will move from protecting America from Al-Qaeda to protecting American corporate interests in Afghanistan, which is to collect rare earth and other mineral resources to help the American economy. That is the main job of the Afghanistan government, because that is the only interest the American government have in that country. They don't care about democracy. All their talks about democracy is fake. So listen to what he says.
So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country.
So Afghanistan, their political leader, their president, ran away. Why did he run away? Because first of all, he was just there because of the Americans. He was not there for the Afghanistan people. So when the American goes, they will go. The same thing with Paul Biya and Buhari. They are there not because of the Cameroonians or the Nigerians. They are there because of the British and the French and the multinationals who are exploiting their resources. They are there because of the earth. They are there because they have been given a military that is being trained by the foreigners. That is the only reason those political things are there. And every time you pull away the foreign presence, the foreign support, those regimes will collapse. And it will not be a bad thing. They have given all propaganda, the Taliban is this and that, but that is not what we are seeing on the street in Kabul today. First, let's continue and I'll get back to that.
Was the right decision. American troops cannot and should not be fighting in a war and dying in a war that Afghan forces are not willing to fight for themselves.
So, this is the President of America testifying to the war that the Afghan army, they were paid salaries, they were given the best equipments, they were trained, they were given ranks and files, over 300,000 of them. They could not fight. Why? Because their only reason of fighting is not about their country, it's about their salary. Same with the Nigerian military and the Cameroon army. They don't want to die because they are not fighting for a moral cause. They are fighting for a political system that provides them with money. So how do you expect people like that to fight? And this should be a lesson to the entire liberation movement, to know that the government of the military of Nigeria and Cameroon will not fight us without foreign backings. Listen.
We spent over $1 trillion. We trained and equipped an Afghan military force of some 300,000 strong. Incredibly well equipped. A force larger in size than the militaries of many of our NATO allies. We gave them every tool they could need. We paid their salaries, provided for the maintenance of their Air Force. Something the Taliban doesn't have. Taliban does not have an Air Force.
So, what you have to know is that you can join the military, American military, or the military in the war. You cannot win the Taliban. Because even though you have the power, the manpower, you have the military gear, you have all those things, the Taliban have disarmed them. Now you have all those weapons now in the hands of the Taliban. The Taliban today are more stronger than some NATO countries, according to what the President of America is saying. Because they are standing on the people's right. The Atlantic Charter that was drawn up by Winston Churchill and Roosevelt, the President of America and UK, it was an acknowledgement of this reality that no government should interfere in the right of governance of any people or alter their political outlook. It will never ever work. It is human nature. That is why no matter how Nigeria is, so long as it was built in disregard of the people's will and the people's right of Biafra, they were disintegrated. The eastern states were disintegrated during the amalgamation against the will of the Biafran people. The southern Cameroons were tied with the French Cameroon against the will of the southern Cameroon people that were expressed in the Manfred Conference, where all our chiefs, our leaders, they say we want independence. But the British people, they decide to go against our will. That's why we can never fit in Cameroon. That's why the Biafrans can never fit in Nigeria. No matter how you try, even if you give them money, even you try to solve all the symptoms, it will not still work. They will still feel out of place because something is wrong. And the Nigerian government will continue to suppress them because they cannot give them freedom to express themselves, because if they open their mouth, the complaints that is going to come there will be that I want to leave. So they have to torture people, political imprisonment, and all these things. Imagine the amount of people that have died. When the Americans, the international community, know very well that you cannot govern a people without their consent. You are setting up a government in Afghanistan, excluding the Taliban, who are actually representing the local people of that land. Why do you think the Taliban cannot be killed? You kill Mullah Omar, you kill all their leaders, new one emerge. You kill their soldiers, new one emerge. In the areas where the Taliban have been controlling, have there been war there? It have been peaceful. In area controlled by the Taliban, women are going to school. But the propaganda machine, the international press, including the United Nations, every day are talking about human right, human right. It should be the human right that suits them, not the human rights that the Taliban people want. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you the real face of the American policy so that you will know how international politics work. This is an education, as we say, this is the no talk zone, where we bring the African people exactly the truth, the reality of their situation, so that they can be equipped with knowledge to make the right decision to affect the change that we deserve as Africans. So this is the testimony of Hillary Clinton, talking about the reality of what has transpired in Afghanistan.
Let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen, and that's great. Let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places.
So this is a credible witness. You are not hearing somebody who is a lay person speculating, throwing conspiracy theory out there. This is the wife of former President Bill Clinton. She was a senator representing New York City. She has been in many committees, have classified information, and she's telling you what the Americans did. They are the one who went to Saudi Arabia and recruited people like Osama bin Laden to bring this Wahhabi brand of Islam into Afghanistan. It did not exist in Afghanistan. She is saying they brought them there, brought foreign fighters, give them weapons. At that time, what were they telling Osama bin Laden and the other people? They were telling them, go and fight for your religion is good, go and do everything. Because behind, they wanted their national interest, which was to fight against their enemy, the Soviet Union. It was not to fight for the Afghanistan people. It was not for the interest of the Afghanistan people. It was to serve the national interests of America. So Africans, we need to understand what drives international politics is not democracy. It's not human condition. It is driven primarily by Americans' international interests, their economic interests, their military interests. That is what drives them. If you want to affect change from these people, you must know this to know what you can get from them and how you can get from them.
Supporting their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated. They lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. So we then left Pakistan. We said, okay, fine, you deal with the stingers that we've left all over your country. You deal with the mines that are along the border. And by the way, we don't want to have anything to do with you. In fact, we're sanctioning you. So we stopped dealing with the Pakistani military and with ISI, and we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
We're building a relationship that just did not exist. I said in our last...
So understand something, my country people, understand this. This is against whatever the Americans have agreed to with the rest of the world in creating the international system, the United Nations. The whole basis of the United Nations is based on this document, the Atlantic Charter, that was fashioned to create the League of Nations and the United Nations. A vision of war, peace, coexistence, and protection of human rights is based on the respect of these principal and cardinal rights. But at every time, the Americans, they violate it. And it does not work. It does not work. And eventually, the right of the people will prevail, as we have seen today in Afghanistan. But ladies and gentlemen, before I hit my closing statement, which is the conclusion I want you to know and the lessons I want you to know as liberation people of Biafra and Ambazonia from this experience of the Taliban and how it is shaping the war, the reality of the war, which is inevitable. Remember that the Americans and the British, they came up with the Atlantic Charter, not because they are good, but because the type of policy of colonialism, expansionism, had turned out to bite them. Because now, what they were doing to the blacks and the Asians, The Germans also had military power, and they decided to do the same thing to the French and the Brits. The Japanese decided also to invade Asia, invade even Hong Kong, where I am based. So imperialism is against human nature and against the law of human nature, and it does not work, because for them to maintain that control over territories abroad, they will be losing human life every day. They will have to be brutal, losing away their moral standing, and they will have to be paying. Eventually, the cost will be unsustainable, and they have to abandon those projects. It's not because they love us, that's why they create the United Nations. It's just human nature that no group of people will accept to be subjugated, will accept to be manipulated, and have government over them that seeks to protect foreign interests and care less about the suffering of their own people. So we have watched the interview, the first press conference of the Taliban, and I want to show you now what is the Taliban. Forget about every classification you have heard from the Americans, calling them terrorists, calling them harborers of Osama bin Laden and all those things. This is now the Taliban, their interview that was granted by their spokesperson Zabaullah Mujahid in Afghanistan, in the presidential palace in Kabul. This is I've put it in 2 excerpts. I'll play you the first one to listen to them in their own words. And believe me, these guys are more trustworthy than the Americans. They are religious people who keep their word. They are better than even the politicians that was running that country.
Some people have created chaos. There have been gangsters operating, but we have stopped them. And I reassure all residents of Kabul that we protect them. They are safe, and now all our fighters are across Kabul city, and we will be taking care of the security.
So I recorded this interview with my own phone, because you know media houses will own, because of patent right and all those things, and they will share it in bits, in pieces, so the quality is not very good. But this is the spokesperson of the Taliban talking about the insecurity problems in Kabul, and talk about the protection of the embassies, how important it is to protect the foreign embassies. This is him talking about protecting property against thieves, against looting. Remember, if it was a Nigerian and Cameroon military, the least thing that happened like that, people will be looting everywhere. The military will just stand behind. These are them being very responsible.
We know that Afghanistan, especially Kabul, is home to many embassies, foreign embassies. So we are trying to protect all, to create security for all the embassies, for all the city, and we have brought extra fighters here. We are reassuring everybody, all international organizations, all embassies, the UN, all aid agencies, that no one will be harmed. They are secure. I have my own translation.
Sorry, the quality is really poor, but this. I want you to hear about the education of women.
Sharia, they are a very important part of our society. We need them. They need to be actively involved in our society. But according.
So this is the Taliban talking about women's rights. They have allowed school to go on in areas they control already. Women are going to school. They have evolved. This evolution might be because of this war or whatever, but it shows that they are flexible. To effectuate change in any society does not require war, does not require guns and bombs. You don't need to go and fight a war to get the Taliban to accept education. And I say that to all conflict areas in Africa. You don't even need, I've always said it, even the war against Boko Haram is useless. It serves only public, international interest. It does not serve the interest of the Nigerian people. They will never win Boko Haram because those Muslim people are fighting in their own homeland. If they say they don't want to teach their children, the solution is not to fight them. Leave them and make the case through advocacy. You will not go and fight them with guns because they want to control their people. All those people bringing those guns, supplying arms to those very Boko Haram in Nigeria, it is the same politicians that are using them to fight for their own political vision of Nigeria, instigating them, taking advantage of their culture, just like the Americans took advantage of the culture and ideology of Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia, importing it into Afghanistan. So if the Americans brought the Taliban into the Al-Qaeda into Afghanistan, who is ultimately responsible for the chaos caused by Osama bin Laden? You see the fighting going on in Cameroon, in Congo, in many other African countries. They are being engineered by foreign powers who are interested in taking away our resources, interested in having puppet governments there with so-called controlled democracy, where they will set up a government. They have written the constitution for you. You are just there to recruit policemen, recruit military people, be brutal on your own people so that the foreign contracts could be executed in your land. And you call yourself government. How can you call yourself a government? You have a country where you did not even write the constitution. How can you call yourself, even in many African countries, in Uganda, in all those countries, are those countries truly African countries? Do the people in those countries actually have a right in deciding on their political outlook and their political leadership? Every time they will use democracy as a blindfold and have rigged elections, they themselves will admit that the election is rigged, and they'll tell you, oh, because of stability, just allow the impostor to continue to rule over you for the next 7 years. 7 will become 14, 14 will become 20, 20 will become 30 years, and the people are hopeless. You have every African youth traveling abroad because of no opportunities. Country with rich, resourceful people, human resource and natural resource, but they cannot put those resources to use because the people who are in charge of those countries care less about development. All they care is to facilitate exploitation by foreign powers who are going to provide them comfort back in the foreign countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the Ambazonians and Biafran liberators, what you have to know is that the people's right shall prevail. All the guns in the war shall not stop Ambazonia. As a matter of fact, the more Pobia sends troops into Ambazonia, the more Ambazonian troops have more guns. The more he escalates, the more we become better. It is just the rule of nature, because their army is there to fight for salary. They are there just to survive and go back to their own country. After the fight, they will go back to their home, where they actually live. But our soldiers are living there. They are the children of that land. The same with the Biafran people. They should know that Nigeria cannot win Biafra. They cannot. They thought that they won Biafra, the war was over. But we have to be better, because now we know why they are fighting us. They are fighting us because of foreign interests. What are these foreign interests? It is the economic power. And it goes against 3 primary guarantees that the world have acknowledged in the people's rights and the right of self-determination that we are fighting. These 3 principles that is being violated in our territory. They say no territorial adjustment against the will of the people. These have been violated by the amalgamation in Nigeria and the so-called unification of the Ambazonia of the southern Cameroon. These are fundamental things that are needed for every country to live in peace and prosperity. Political outlook. We did not decide on the state. The outlook of our outlook is like you want to be a federal state, you want to be a republican, whatever you want the country to be like, the political system. The political system designed that the Biafran people are living under was not done in their consultation. It does not reflect what they want. The same with Southern Cameroon and Ambazonia. The third one is self-governance, where the people can govern themselves through elected representative. Now in Nigeria, the people don't even have a right. They have corrupted them with this system that forces itself on them. So much that the people are in destitution, that a single vote in Nigeria now have a value, a naira value. It's 5,000 for one vote. For corrupt people to buy their place into governorship, into senate. These are all corrupt individuals. They are there because of money. They are there because they are paid money. They are not there to serve the Nigerian people or the Biafran people. Not even the Nigerian people. The same with Cameroon. In Cameroon, they don't even have money for that. They don't even... The Ambazonian people are worthless because the French people are even more brutal. They don't even buy your vote. They write the result already before they go into election. And they read that result, and there is nothing the people can do. They are powerless. You protest, they don't even care if you protest till you die. For us to govern ourselves, for us to be able to write our constitution that reflects our specificity, we have to get rid of these impostor puppet governments that are over us. We need to safeguard our territorial integrity. We need to raise our own army. We need to write our own constitution. We need to design our own government, our own justice system according to the way we want it to be. We have to speak our own language the way we want it to be and the way our people understands. All those who can effectuate this change will not be the people who speaks like our colonizer, who acts like our colonizer, who understands our colonizer. It will be people that understands our people, that feel for our people, that will fight and ready to die for our people. Sorry to tell you, those PhD holders, they will have no say in our liberation because they understand the way their mind have already been brainwashed. All those parading we see with BBC PhDs, they will only tell you follow the rules because they were trained to follow the rule of the white man. They were trained to follow the rules of the white man, and the rules were meant to keep us the way we are. Nnamdi Kanu is not a leader because he carries his PhD. All the Eastern Security Network guys, I talk with them, most of them, they don't speak English because they are the real people who understands and feel for the people. Look at the ADF, it's the same. Our General Efang and our best general we have, General Ivor, they did not go to military school. But they are willing to fight, like our soldiers in the old. They were fighting for the village. They were fighting for their children. That is the reason why police exists. That's the reason why military exists. It does not exist because you are recruited. It exists because of need. We must fight and liberate ourselves for our people to come out of this thing. What this overthrow of the government, of the Afghanistan government, their failure to fight, their failure to resist forever, has come about because the people resisted. The Taliban did not give up. They keep on fighting. They keep on fighting. And that is why the Americans come to the conclusion that they are losing more money than they are making. They should not be fighting for you when you cannot fight for yourself. And we can make Nigeria and Cameroon come to the same conclusion by resisting, by fighting with all we've got. We should not listen to those who come with the manipulated calculation to make us to behave the way the slave master wants us to behave. If a slave, you want your freedom, the last person you should be talking to or listening to is the person who is the watcher. You know, the slave always have a task master. The last person you should be talking to is the happy slave or the task master, or the one who is dining, who understands, who is discussing with the enemy. The Taliban did not look for representatives who have studied in Britain or who are working with Americans who can speak English. As a matter of fact, they had a translator translating in Pashtun to their spokesperson. Their spokesperson cannot speak English. because he is there to express the will of the indigenous people. He's not there to talk in English. No revolutionary have won who were there speaking very good English. Go and look Mugabe. Mugabe was a pure Englishman. He had all the good ideas. He was a revolutionary. But what system did he put in place? At the end of the day, the British people make him a knight. They gave him all those titles, and he became even a tyrant to his own people. Nelson Mandela, a true revolutionary at heart, but a real British man. He compromised. If you had the first leader of South Africa was the wife of Nelson Mandela, the South African people today will be independent. Yes, the economy could have plunged, but they could have emerged better. The Southern Sudan, they killed their real revolutionary. In Southern Sudan, they killed their real revolutionary and had somebody who is now debating, but they have a chance. The real revolutionary for us is Cho Ayaba. The real revolutionary for the Biafran people is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. If something was to happen to him, which is what I expect will happen, the Biafran people should not look somebody who is eloquent. All those qualities should not be even on their consideration. They should look those people who had worked with Nnamdi Kanu when it was not popular, who have gone to jail with him and come out. Those people who cannot even speak properly in the public, but who love the people, who are ready to fight for the people, who will not take decisions that will protect themselves and their political interests, but that will protect the interests of the people, who are willing to die for the people. Ladies and gentlemen, the international community, they are licking their butts now because they have come to the realization that their policy to impose themselves on other people and other culture cannot work. We must step up as indigenous people, speak for ourselves, because nobody will speak for us. You don't expect to be in a competition, because the international community is a competitive community, for your opponents and your rivals to come and advise you. You only get advice from people like us. Like Guevara said, the father of the United States of Africa, do not expect other race to liberate you. It must come from you. We are the voice of the never again generation, the voice of the hope of Africa. You have been waiting for us. We are the true liberators, the voice that speaks with unfiltered language to you on the need to liberate yourself. If you do not liberate Biafra and Ambazonia this time, our people will suffer worse than we have suffered in the next 20 years. There will be over 65 million Africans living in West Africa to go to Europe to seek for asylum. The migration wave will continue. Yes, we can be free. We can be independent from all corruption, from all subjugation, all marginalization. Yes, we can make it. And we are doing it. Thank you very much for listening to me. God bless you. And may our liberation movement be short-lived. May freedom, democracy, civil liberty be in Ambazonia and in Biafra land forever. God bless you.